Hey, thank you for being with us this afternoon. This afternoon we'll be taking the Wallace Foundation research to practice, and our topic for today is creating a climate hospitable to education. So the Wallace Foundation has centered their work around the school principal as leader, guiding schools to better learning and teaching. So since 2000, the Wallace Foundation has published more than 70 reports on leadership. Given that the Wallace Foundation and NESP share very similar efforts, they also have very similar commitments. And so NESP is very committed to helping lead in the advocacy and support of elementary and middle school principals. And the Wallace Foundation is committed to fostering improvements in learning and enrichment for disadvantaged children and also the vitality of the arts for everyone. Since 2000, Wallace has supported states and school districts in developing and improving leadership models for principals to build better schools. Their efforts have touched 24 states and numerous urban school districts. This work has included the publication of 70-plus research-related studies and other reports. The Foundation's principal pipeline is a 5-year undertaking that is helping districts develop larger corps of effective school principals and aspiring leaders. In 2011, 6 districts became participants in this initiative: Charlotte-Mecklenburg, Denver, Gwinnett County, Hillsborough County, New York City, and Prince George's County. Wallace embraces 5 key practices of leadership: shaping a vision of academic success for all students, creating a climate hospitable to education, cultivating leadership in others, improving instruction, and managing people, data, and processes to foster school improvement. So I am your moderator for today. I am the Director of Principal Leadership Development, and we'll be joined by 2 outstanding principals, Camille Wallen, Principal of Muskota New School in New York City, and Lisa Marie Johnson, Principal of Lawrenceville Elementary School in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'd like to begin with Camille telling her story.
So before we begin, I'd like to, I'm not Camille, I'm Honor. I'd like to ask Camille to come on and tell us what you know.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Camille Wallen, and I am the principal of the Muskota New School. And Muskota is a small progressive school located in the Inwood section of Manhattan. Manhattan, of course, being one of New York City's 5 boroughs. Next. As I said, we're a small school with 260 students in grades kindergarten through 5th grade. Approximately 34% of our students qualify for free lunch. We have 11% of our students who have disabilities, and 7% of our students are learning English as a new language. A little bit about our performance this last year on the New York State assessments. 59% of our students were proficient in math, and 55% of our students were proficient in ELA. And just to put that in context, since New York City is so big, Manhattan, the borough that we are in, has 6 districts. We were the highest achieving district, the highest achieving, school in our district. But my school is located in the lowest performing district in Manhattan. Next. So what I want to focus on is the 3 things, or the 3 areas that I think are most important for creating a climate hospitable to education. And for me, those are building a supportive environment, nurturing collaboration among teachers, and engaging the community. Next. So a supportive environment, I think one of the most important things is to remember that the principal must take the lead and that the principal sets the tone. So it's important that the principal is the most supportive person in the building. I do a lot of walking and talking. I make myself incredibly visible. I try my best to listen and to respond to students and teachers on the spot, open door policy, always willing to do any job that needs to get done. Next. Regarding the supportive environment, I think it's important to always remember that we know the first step is always a safe and orderly environment, and without that, nothing can happen. But once we build that in our schools, we have to remember that the supportive environment needs to be happening in the classroom, that our classrooms need to be places where students are taking academic risks, where their voices are heard and valued, and that they are learning the habits of mind and the behavior so that they can take more ownership of their learning. So something we've been working on at Muskota recently is doing a lot of teaching of how you persevere through difficult problems, how you stay focused when something feels challenging. We put in Socratic seminar and student-to-student protocols where children are expected to defend their work and other students are expected to critique the work of other children, and that children and teachers are just recognizing that to meet the newer standards that require a lot more critical thinking and a deeper understanding, our classrooms need to be places where kids are starting to do more talking and collaborating and getting more ownership over their learning. Next. Again, with the supportive environment, I know all of us as principals, so there's not one of us that you're going to meet that says we don't care about the whole child. Focusing on the needs of the whole child is something we all do every day, but I want to reiterate how important it is that the social and emotional learning is valued just as much as the academic learning, and that you can see where there's been an emphasis on teaching the skills and strategies to support social and emotional learning. Next. At Muskota, we use the responsive classroom curriculum specifically for that purpose of supporting the social and emotional development and learning of our children. It's a comprehensive curriculum with many different components. And at Muskota, we do implement all of the components that include morning meetings that are opportunities for the community to get together and say good morning and hello to one another, a closing circle that wraps up the day with reflections or compliments. We use community meetings as ways to solve conflicts. We do use restorative justice as part of our discipline code, and restorative justice really emphasizes that the community is involved in resolving the conflict, and both the people who did the harm and those that were harmed are together to come to a resolution. It's basically a you broke it, you fix it approach. So there's natural consequences to children's behavior, and community meetings within the classroom are places for kids to kind of understand how they can make better choices and hold themselves accountable for that. We use positive teacher language, which is the way that we speak to kids, and an approach for how we support kids with using language when talking to one another. And as I said before, when talking about in our classrooms, student choice is both part of the responsive classroom curriculum, but also something that we're constantly trying to get better at in our actual academic instruction. How can we give more kids opportunities to have choice in the content, the way they present it, to have some voice in how it is assessed. Next. The second thing I want to talk about is collaborative teachers. And again, your teachers can't be collaborative if, as the principal, you don't set the systems and structures in place. So principals, we have to provide the time for it. We also have to monitor and pay attention to whether or not the professional development teachers are receiving or giving to one another, or that we're supporting their attendance, that really is high quality and reflects the needs of an adult learner. I think it's also important for the principal to be paying attention to whether or not the work that teachers is doing is differentiated, just like we differentiate for the children, based on teachers' common goals, interests, and needs. Next. Again, with collaborative teachers, I think each school has to find where the work that teachers do together has the most impact on student learning and student outcomes. And for us at Muskota, doing lesson study and peer observation has been the most effective collaboration. I think when teachers are getting into each other's classroom and actually collaborating on what's going to be taught and then how it impacted students, builds a sense of community among those teachers more than other approaches that I have seen. The other thing that I think is incredibly important for building collaborative teachers is that teachers score all the benchmark assessments together. That we've even experimented with not only going cross grades, but not only going horizontally, but going vertically as well. And we've seen that we've had good collaboration with that. Next. And just wanting to reiterate that for true collaboration to happen, trust is a prerequisite. And so as the principal, if you are not actively supporting the building of trust and monitoring trust, you will never get true collaboration. It has to be safe for the teachers to actually openly and honestly discuss what is working and what isn't working. Next. And the last piece that I want to talk about is the importance of engaging the community. All of our schools have rituals and traditions, some that we've inherited, some that we've created while we've been principals, and I want to focus on the importance of always looking at these traditions and rituals and refining them and building them up, because they are things in your school that message the core values, and they also reinvigorate cultural cohesion when they are done well. So they are necessary and important and quite powerful to creating the climate. Next. In terms of engaging the community with parents, it's important that parents are connected to the school from the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. And again, some of the rituals and traditions help with that, but it's also some of the basics about your arrival procedure, your dismissal procedure, whether you openly invite volunteers in the classroom. At Muskota, we hold a weekly town hall meeting where all of the community is invited to, just as an activity to ensure that parents are connected to the school and feel a sense of belonging, just the way we want our kids to feel a sense of belonging. Next. And finally, with engaging the community, I think we have to involve the parents or other members of the community in activities that directly impact the child's academic achievement. That if we're not maximizing the talent of our parents, or if we're not making sure that our parents and community members can be engaged in a way that is directly impacting student achievement, we've lost an opportunity. So at Muskota, we do a lot of those type of activities too. Having math nights where parents will do a 5th grade math lesson alongside their child so that they're learning the math. We have student-led conferences. Parents are always invited to publishing parties. Teachers will give a brief how you can give feedback to another child's piece of writing that will motivate them and show that you celebrated them as an author. Parents come in, they judge debates, and then something, because we try to do a lot of project-based learning and authentic learning, field trips are a big part of our curriculum. So using our parents not just as chaperones, but as leaders of a group who we help support with what kind of questions you can ask children. How do you help children get the most out of the field trip so that they can bring it back as a reference for their reading and writing in the classroom. Next. So I would just like to take this opportunity to thank you for listening and for being part of this webinar.
Great. Thank you, Camille. And to give the audience a little bit more background about you, you've been a principal for 12 years. She holds the title as executive principal. Before she was principal of her current school, she was principal of PS 42 in the Bronx. Camille is also a graduate of the New York Leadership Academy, and she continues to mentor aspiring principals. Before becoming a principal, Camille was a literacy coach in District 5, and she began her career as a Head Start teacher, and she has a master's degree in early childhood education. She's taught preschool, kindergarten, first grade, and drama. So I really thank you a lot, Camille, and appreciate some of the valid points that you brought up about culture. And one of the things that I really want to hone in on, you talked about the need to revise and revamp. And when we look at some of the big thought leaders out there about school climate, in particular, I'm thinking about Paul Van Brixentoyo in his book, Leverage Leadership. He talks about with culture, it's you're doing a process continually where he describes it as rinse, lather, rinse, and repeat. So can you talk to us a little bit more about how you go about revising and revamping the culture in your school?
Yeah, so when you enter the school, you listen and observe, and you get a lot of messages about teacher morale, student morale, and parent morale. And one of the messages that was sent that you could kind of feel at Muskota is that there was a lot of emphasis on making sure that we maintained the weekly town meeting, that it was this very important part of the Muskota culture. And you heard a lot of that from parents. But then the feedback from the 5th grade students was that it was kind of boring and they didn't like it, and some of the 5th grade students didn't always have the expected behavior that we would have wanted to see at town meeting. And then you had teachers who maybe felt like it wasn't as meaningful as it could be. So you take a look at this incredible tradition that a community comes together every week and does things to not only build and nurture the community, but celebrate what they're doing, but for some reason that's not what's happening. And so you start to look at that, and so we revamped it. We kept the tradition, but we made it more engaging for the older children. We built in ways that the teachers can use the town meeting to showcase what their class is doing academically. So I think that's important because we walk into schools and there's things there that just need to be refocused or refined that way. You can't come in and say, it's not working, let's get rid of it. You have to say, what was the original intention of this? What is the hope and dream of this? And then when you start to understand that, you can start to have the conversations with people around, well, what is it that we have to shift or change to get back to that mission? There was another tradition, the winter kind of celebration where kids got to perform. And over time, when you came to the school, the tradition was singling out only certain children who got the opportunity to perform. Well, you don't get rid of that fabulous tradition. You just start to build in how do we make it more equitable so all children get to be the superstars.
Absolutely. You bring up some really valid points, and especially for a new principal going into a school and them observing and participating in long-held traditions in a school. It's very, very important to honor those, but also to look at, taking the school forward at the next level as far as building that climate and making sure that the current participants are very much active and a part of what that new principal may be trying to build.
Absolutely. And just one thing, I didn't come in and say what needed to change in those traditions. I listened to the voices of the teachers and of the children, and so that it began to be, it wasn't me coming in and saying we needed to change this. It was me highlighting where there were possibilities for us to grow. And I think that's really important when you're trying to change or shift a culture.
Right, and your teachers definitely have a lot of buy-in into the work that goes on in the school. I'd like for you to talk a little bit about your positive behavior system in the school. You did mention it, responsive classroom. If you could talk a little bit about that, and also how you've overlaid restorative justice.
Right. So we do follow the responsive classroom curriculum, and it's scripted. And if you choose to follow the script, it lays out what you do the first 6 weeks. And in that first 6 weeks, you are building your community. So, for example, rules do not get made in a responsive classroom until about the second week of school. And they are not made by the teacher, they are made by the community. So it takes 2 weeks for the community to first have to think about what is it and what are their agreements. So there is an approach to that as a community, we have expectations of one another, and so you have to follow those expectations as being part of the community, but then the community holds responsibility to supporting you when you have, quote, unquote, harmed the community. So it is a different approach, and it requires a lot of training and ongoing support for teachers, because it is not a behavior modification system. So we don't use rewards and consequences. Those type of behavior plans are only used for individual children who are still having a hard time joining the community with these particular strategies. So every day, if necessary, the first week of school, there'll be a community meeting where all the kids sit down and the kids will talk about that during the read aloud. They couldn't hear because, and they're not allowed to name names. They will say, because 2 students continue to call out. And then some of our older kids can facilitate these meetings. So let's all brainstorm what we can do to solve this problem. So it's a lot of work up front, and there's a lot of time spent on it up front. You know, a community meeting can last 15 minutes, and so it will be edging into, you know, it might be coming up on your math block. So you have to be very clear on that it's an approach that you want to invest in, because if you don't invest in it up front, it's not successful. So with restorative justice, the emphasis is on the harmed and the person who harmed coming together and cooperating and figuring out what can be done. So we're in elementary school, so our crimes, so to speak, are, not passing during the basketball game and then me getting angry with you and me pushing you. And so that's what is resolved, and it's all of the people together figuring out why did that person push, and why was pushing not okay, and what led to it, and what can we do, so that the solution becomes the kids making decisions about that, and then the child who harmed somebody, it's like, what can you do? How can you repair that? And, we have a menu of things that kids can do and we can help, but most of our kids will always do an apology of action, which means that they will do something extra special and extra nice for that person to show them that they understood what they did was wrong, and that they're hoping that they can continue getting along or being friends. Sometimes there's the person who was harmed is like, I want your apology, but I'm not ready to be on your basketball team. And that's acceptable too. So that's kind of how it works. It is in contrast to a reward and consequence system.
Right, absolutely. It sounds very student-focused, and it really lends itself to what you mentioned earlier about really building around student agency with resilience and making sure that students are able to problem solve and make good decisions. So no, thank you so much for what you shared with us this afternoon. So next, I do want to introduce Lisa Marie Johnson. So Lisa is the principal of Lawrenceville Elementary School, and she's been at the school for 5 years. Prior to being a principal, she served as assistant principal for 9 years and was a teacher for 6 years. She received her bachelor's degree from Fredonia State University in early childhood education. She holds a master's degree from Georgia State in elementary education, and she also has a specialist degree in instructional leadership from the University of Georgia. So, Lisa, we're very excited to hear about the journey in your school.
Well, thank you for having me today. I do want to start with a little bit about my school. My school is located in Gwinnett County, Georgia, and we are a large urban school district in the suburbs of Atlanta. I have a school, our student population is 700 students. We are a high poverty school at 95% free and reduced lunch. We have 51% African American, 35% Hispanic, and 10% white. We do have 30% that are EL students, English language learners. We have 13% that receive special ed, and we have 5% that receive gifted. Next. So when I came to my school, there were some immediate needs that really needed attention. And when I was offered the position from the superintendent, he often gives a charge for you as the principal of the school for what you need to change in the school. And my charge was to change the climate of the school and to get the community involved. So the first area that I needed to start with was teacher morale. Teacher morale was very low. There was a high turnover of teachers in the school. And if you don't have teachers that are happy, they're not going to be happy teaching their students, and then your students are not happy. So the first place that I started was to build teacher morale. And we did and continue to do a lot of things to keep that morale going. The first is, my favorite thing is, we provide room service to teachers, and we just put candy and chips and water on a cart. And you can see in the picture here, the administration goes room to room, and we stop at every teacher's door, and we let them pick out treats from the room service cart. And the teachers really love that. Also, we do a lot for teacher appreciation. We have a full week where we have something every single day. On Christmas, at the holidays, we do the 12 days of Christmas, and every day there's competitions going on with our teachers. We have treats for them on several days, and it just helps build the atmosphere in our school. You know, sometimes we might just cancel a meeting just to give the staff a break. You know, we try to keep our finger on the pulse of where our staff is. If there's a lot going on or they have a lot of things to do, like this week we have early release conferences. So we canceled our meetings this week so that they could have that time to just rejuvenate and spend time focusing on their parents. In my weekly newsletter, I send that out every Monday. We call it the Monday Morning Message. And the administration, all three of us, I have 2 other administrators in our building, we make sure that we recognize great teaching. So as we do our walkthroughs, we make sure that when we see something great, we make sure we recognize it in that newsletter. And the teachers really look to see if their name is in that newsletter. And we sometimes just focus on things that were taught during the staff development that week. And so we're really making sure that teachers know that they're valued. Another area, coming in as a new principal, I had to make sure that there were clear expectations because my expectations were very different from the principal that was here before me. And I had to make sure that I was communicating often with the teachers, letting them know exactly what was expected so that they could be successful. Teachers always want to do what's expected. In fact, if you say do this, they'll say give me an example. So it's, you know, really making sure that you have those clear expectations, that the teachers know exactly where you are, they know your vision of the school, and they know what you're looking for. And another initiative that I was very important, and I know Camille talked about this as well, is to be visible in the building. My goal is to be in every classroom at least once every 2 weeks. I try to get in every week, but with different meetings that we have, I make sure that I'm in every classroom at least one time every 2 weeks. And when I go in to do a walkthrough, I make sure that I provide positive feedback. So if it's a point where I can say something to the teacher right while I'm in the room, I will say that immediately, you know, just a 30-second feedback, or I'll just shoot out a quick email focusing on something that maybe the teacher and I were working on as one of their goals, and I noticed that they improved in that area. So really keeping that communication with the teachers on what they're doing and setting goals with those teachers, and then rewarding them for making progress. And of course, Jeans Days are really an easy reward that you can give out. Sometimes we'll just go on the announcements and say, tomorrow's a Jeans Day, thanks for all you do. And it's real easy and it doesn't cost you anything. Next. Another important tool as a new principal, or just to do, I continue to do this, but starting out, I made sure that I gave these quick surveys, and I did it. They take a teacher a couple minutes to do, but it's just to find out what's important to the teachers and what areas are we still needing to improve. I did those often, and I shared those results with the teachers whenever we did those. I typed up the results and let the teachers know what the results were. I also have an open door policy. My door is literally always open, and teachers know that they can come to me for anything. I love having instructional conversations. I love having debates with teachers, and they like to come in and just challenge some ideas that they have. I encourage them to bring ideas to me, and then we discuss how we could implement some of these things. Also, administration attends all collaborative planning sessions, and we meet weekly for collaborative planning as well as staff development. So the administration are in all of those meetings, and we participate in those. We collaborate, in fact, as a whole school with the local school plan for improvement. We create that together based on data analysis and discuss. They create the goals for the year, and we really base that on our data. And the teachers really feel that they all have a voice in that, and we use protocols all the time from the School Reform Initiative, and that's really to encourage a voice from all. Sometimes on a faculty you might have a few people that speak up more than others, and so, you know, using these protocols really helps you hear a voice from everybody, and so we use those often. Next. The next initiative that I needed to put in place was building leadership, both in our teachers and our students. There was no evidence of teacher leadership or student leadership in the school. In fact, we didn't even have a student council. So I started with the students, and we created a student council. We also developed a junior beta club, which is based on grades. You have to have a B average in 5th grade. We started two clubs. Our Girls Are Pearls is a girls club where we look at building character and developing leadership skills, and for boys we have our Young Knights, because we're the Black Knights. So our Young Knights, and what we do with those is really creating, building the leadership but developing character. We also have a student council, we have safety patrols, and we have a news crew. So we have a lot of areas where we build student leadership. Next. And I also created a Teacher Leader Academy, and this was voluntary. It's not my leadership, it's not my grade level chairs, it was just voluntary. Anybody could be a part of this team. And the requirements were that each member had to develop a project that was going to have an impact on student achievement. So they had to really look at and analyze our data and look at processes and procedures and see where they could make an impact. An example is one of my teachers wanted to create a collaborative classroom, a room where teachers could bring their students, where we had technology set up. Students could work in groups and, tables that were conducive to collaboration. And so her task was to create that and then to train the teachers on how to use that classroom. We also did 2 book studies to build the leadership skills. We did Leadership 101 by John Maxwell and The Power of Nice by Linda Kaplan. And The Power of Nice, that book, we focused on that because we really needed to change the way we spoke to our children and be nice to anybody, really, that came through that door. And then to guide our change agent we used the book Leading Change by Jody Spiro, and we used that really in guiding our projects. Next. Another initiative that we did was really looking at data. We did data digs weekly or monthly, depending on what data we had. But we had to analyze our data, and really we had teachers that made a lot of excuses. We are a high poverty school, so teachers had the mindset that our students couldn't perform at levels that other schools were doing. So we started looking at our data, and we did a protocol called the 5 Whys, and had teachers discuss the areas of concern after looking at the data. They listed reasons for their low test scores, and then we removed any reasons that were out of our control. We can't help if our parents don't speak English, although we can put training in place, but looking at things that really were in our control as a school. And the teachers had to organize these in categories, and then they had to name those categories. And then we kept looking at why. For instance, the picture shows why did greater than or less than 20% of our students in grade 3 through 5 fail our end-of-the-year math subtest. And they really, what I was trying to get them to focus on was, there is a reason why. And so they came up with the reasons, and it was in a non-threatening way. And it really, this was kind of our turning point in our collaboration, because we weren't pointing to the teachers saying that they weren't doing their job. It was, we need to change what we're doing so that we can change the data. Next. And another initiative that we created was Positive Behavior Interventions and Support program that we put in place. When I arrived, we had a high number of behavior referral office, and there really wasn't a lot of control in many of the classrooms. So we incorporated the school-wide behavior, and there were expectations school-wide. We went on the announcements, the students were aware of it, and it is a reward program, but we focused our attention, instead of focusing our attention on the students that were doing the wrong thing, we focused our attention on the majority of the students which are doing the right thing. So we have this small number of kids that are not following the rules, but they're taking up the attention of the whole class. So we switched our mindset to focusing on students that are doing the right thing. We have a PBIS team, and they meet monthly, and we review the data monthly. And we put things in place. For instance, one month, we had a high percentage of referrals on the playground. So we put some initiatives in place to make the playground more structured. We started playing games with the students and really started structuring the playground, which helped in turn decrease referrals on the playground. I also did hire a behavior coach, and the behavior coach provides assistance to teachers in classroom management. So whether it's working with an individual student that's struggling, or going into a teacher that's struggling to manage her classroom, going in, taking data, giving suggestions to help organize that classroom. And it's important, if you don't have classroom management, then you can't have instruction taking place. Next. And the final initiative that I put in place was getting the community involved. The community really did not feel welcome in the school when I arrived, and so it was reaching out and finding, influential people in the community and getting them to come back into the school. So the first thing I did was I joined the Rotary Club, which is a charitable organization, but it's filled with business people. And so I was meeting the business people in the community. And now the Rotary Club still, that was 5 years ago, they maintain our courtyard, and they come and read to our students on a weekly basis. They have volunteers from there. We also went to the local churches, and one church has sponsored a mentor program called Kids Hope USA, and it is a national organization, but they trained their volunteers from their church, and we currently have 45 mentors that come weekly, work one-on-one with individual students, and they work with that same student, and that transfers year to year. In fact, this year we had 2 fifth graders that had mentors, and the mentors moved up with them to middle school. So that's been a very beneficial program to our students that just need a little extra love in their day. We also have businesses that help us. We have Kohl's Cares comes, they volunteer, and they've actually helped us create a garden, and they also help us maintain that. In addition, every time their workers volunteer at our school, we get $500. So they come monthly, and that's a win-win for us. We also have our local mayor. I did go to I met with the mayor. I made an appointment to meet with the mayor and our local city council members and tried to get them involved. Our mayor currently volunteers weekly in a classroom. She sponsors a classroom every year, and she also comes and reads. She comes and joins us in the cafeteria and just walks through our cafeteria, and she also plays the piano for us for all of our chorus events. Next. And in addition, we also have clubs, after-school clubs, and our local soccer club provides an after-school program free of charge for our students, and we also have some volunteers that we have a Google club that we have after school, and our clubs after school are all free of charge, and we have volunteers sponsoring all of those. Next. Just wanted to end with a little bit of data. So in 2011, our baseline data for discipline referrals was 259, and we have dramatically reduced that. So last year we had only 82 referrals the whole year, and reduced our numbers of days of in-school suspension and out-of-school suspension. And what's important here is that we're getting the kids to stay in the classroom where they're learning, and we're also maintaining control of the classroom so that we're maximizing our instructional time so that instruction can take place. And at this point, we only have 2% of our students in our school that have received 0 or more than 1 office discipline referral. So we're really excited about that data. Next. And then our last bit of data, this year the state of Georgia started a new assessment, and it looks at student performance growth. So the students at the beginning of the year are given a pretest, and based on that pretest, there's an estimate of how much growth is a typical growth for one year for that student that comes on that level. So if you look at the chart at the bottom, to be an exemplary teacher, and this rating is based on teachers get this rating as part of their evaluation, that 30%, to be exemplary, 30%, you have to have 30% high growth. And so I just thought that this was just an amazing bit of data on our student performance growth this year. In kindergarten, for instance, 82% had high growth, 89% in math, 82% in English language arts. So you can see the chart there that we're very pleased with this data, that we are making a difference in the lives of our children. And my goal was to create an environment where students and teachers and the community want to be part of our school. And I feel with all of these initiatives that we have done that. And just to share a story, at the end of our school year, every year our kids cry on the last day of school because they don't want to leave for summer, and so they do want to be here, and that's just that we've just created that environment, and our teachers have really stepped up to help change the mindset of our school. Next. So thank you for listening, and I've enjoyed this conversation.
Wow, Lisa, I've really enjoyed hearing about the wonderful things that are going on in your school. And I'd really like, to have you talk a little bit more about, you mentioned that, administrators participate in your collaborative planning sessions, and if you could just go into a little bit more detail about that. Are you all the guides on the side, or are you the sages on the stage? Could you talk a little bit about that?
I sure will. We do have instructional coaches, and they typically provide the professional development or collaborative planning. They guide all of those meetings. But we are a part of the meeting, so we will interject, but we are not facilitating that meeting. That is completely done with the grade level chairs and the instructional coaches. So we're just on the sidelines, but we do participate, and we do give feedback. If we're using protocols, we go right along doing the protocol just as everybody else is. We're just a member of the team in that meeting.
Right. So you sound like you're very much shoulder to shoulder in the work with your teachers, correct?
Correct. And then we make sure that we need to be in those meetings because we need to know what they're learning. And then as we're doing our walkthroughs, we make sure to comment on things that happened in that collaborative meeting. So if the teachers were discussing something or trying, in planning, developing a lesson, maybe we go into the classroom and see that lesson take place. We're making sure that we're complimenting the teacher on trying something new and just the work that they're doing.
Right, and your behavior data was just incredible. I know that your school embraces PBIS, and you did mention a behavior coach. Could you talk a little bit about that person's role in your school?
Yeah, so just in analyzing my school, we had to get behaviors under control, but the teachers didn't necessarily have the skills to do it. So we really needed to implement the PBIS program, which was a lot of work, and training for our teachers. So in doing that, I did hire a behavior coach. And what that behavior coach does, like he meets with our students that are receiving discipline referrals, so our students that are receiving more referrals than they should be. He meets with those kids every morning. He has a meet and greet in the morning with those students to give them a pep talk for the day. He also, teachers can go to him and say, I'm struggling with this student. Can you come and observe and see what's happening? See if there's anything that I'm doing that's setting him off or giving suggestions. Maybe a teacher's having an issue with her whole class. I'm having a hard time coming back from recess. Can you help me reset my classroom so that we can have instruction taking place? And then he works with the students that are receiving discipline referrals, and he meets with them, develops relationships with them to get those behaviors to turn around.
You have some incredible resources in your school. You talked about your instructional coach, and you have a behavior coach. How many instructional coaches do you have?
This year I have 3 instructional coaches on the grade levels, and then I have a math instructional coach and a behavior coach, so I have 5.
That is incredible. Many principals out there, I'm sure, wish they had access to the resources that you have. Can you talk a little bit about how you go about staffing these positions and funding these positions?
Yes, well, I do receive Title I funds because I am a high poverty school at 95%. But so I use almost all of those funds to hire staff. So this year I was able to purchase 4.5, and in our school district we get points for staff. So our district downloads teacher points. So I was able to hire 4.5 teachers with my Title I funds this year. So I use that for my coaches. So those are the points that I use for my coaches.
Wow, that's incredible. So, I kept on hearing reoccurring themes in both of the stories that we heard this afternoon, I heard a really clear focus on students and making sure that you're meeting the needs of your students that can be very unique based on a lot of contributing factors. I also heard about the focus that you've given to your teachers and really empowering them and making them leaders beside you in the work. I heard about how your parents are very much a part of the work that goes on in the school, and also incredible ways that you have included the community. So I really thank you both for sharing some magnificent work that goes on in both of your schools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have just a brief amount of time left, and so, you know, I did have some discussion and dialogue questions. The principals did talk about some of the incentives that they have for student behavior and academic performance. And really quickly, can one of you comment on, you know, how have you seen these incentives work with modifying student behavior and increasing academic performance?
Well, I can go ahead and talk about what we do for PBIS. Our students wear the Black Knights, so we give night dollars out. And instead of saying to the student that might not be listening, we might hand out a night dollar to say, oh, Susie, I like how you're sitting in ready position, ready to learn. We also give night dollars out to buses. We had a lot of discipline referrals on our buses. So the bus drivers actually give out night dollars. We met with the bus drivers and do training with them every year. And so our bus discipline referrals have gone down because the bus drivers are giving out night dollars. And so we're really, when we hand out a night dollar, it's not just here's a night dollar, it's why you're getting it. And then the students see that, and so they say, oh, well, I'm supposed to be in ready position, and they'll get into ready position because they want to receive those night dollars. And then we have rewards at the end of the 9 weeks. They can turn their money in to get into 3 different parties. We have a $50 party, a $100 party, and a $150 party. So the students want to enter that party on the last day of the 9 weeks, right, when report cards come out.
Wow, that's incredible. So I know that Camille talked about, you know, she has her town meetings and parents are involved in that. Camille, could you talk a little bit more about, are parents in your school provided a space and a place to discuss parenting and issues of concern that may have some impact on the school's culture and climate?
Yes, absolutely. There is, every month I do a coffee with Camille, which is open to parents, and the topics are broad, but have usually come out of a possible issue or concern with the school. So coffee with Camille, there's been issues around test prep, too much, too little. Their coffee with Camille topics have been around whether our children in kindergarten through 2nd grade get enough recess time and gym time. We're a school that's very much devoted to the arts, and so there's a lot of conversations where parents can talk about, again, whether everybody has equal access to performing and those kind of things. We also have a very active parent association. And part of the parent association is that we have a class parent program and I work collaboratively with the PA and the class parent coordinator, so to speak, to make sure that each classroom has a parent who sees that part of their job is to make sure that 100% of those parents in that class are well informed, are communicated with, and have an opportunity to participate and volunteer. We also have a very active school leadership team, which includes parents, administration, and teachers. And the school leadership team is, mandated as part of New York City schools. Some schools have less active SLT teams, and some have more active. We have a team where the parents are nominated, they are voted to be on the team, so that it becomes another space that I try to actually encourage, that is the space for parents to make concerns more known if they're above, just meeting with me or the assistant principal or the teacher.
Great, thank you, Camille. So moving on. So today we've talked about, it's very evident that teachers perform best in schools that have a climate established by principals like Camille and Lisa, who support the development of their skills, promote professional learning communities, and clearly acknowledge their contributions leading to student achievement. So in looking at future webinars we have taking place on October 27th, we'll be talking about shaping a vision of academic success for all students. On November 17th, cultivating leadership in others. On January 26th, improving instruction to enable teachers to teach at their best and students to learn at their utmost. And then on February 25th, managing people, data, and processes to foster school improvement. So here are some links to some additional resources from NASP, the Wallace Foundation, PBIS, and responsiveclassroom.org. Also of interest, there will be a Wallace Foundation live webcast on October 5th from 4 to 5, and the topic with this webcast is from the principal's office, how leaders drive student learning. So if anybody's interested in participating in that live webcast, you can register at our website at nasp.org. Also coming up is our annual national conference. This year it'll be held at National Harbor in Maryland, and the dates for that are July 6th through the 8th. We hope that we'll have many of our leaders participating and being with us at National Harbor. And in closing, I really want to thank Lisa and Camille for sharing their stories around culture today with us. One of the important things that we all know as school leaders is that, you have to have the culture right before anything can take shape and really move forward in a school. So again, thank you, Lisa and Camille, for sharing your stories.